Hi, welcome to the Mindset English channel. I'm Michael Carter. Welcome back. If you're new here, this channel is not about difficult grammar, confusing rules, or trying to sound like someone you're not. This channel is about helping you use English confidently in real life. And today's topic is how to practice English for mental resilience. Let me start with something that most English learners are never told. Practicing English is not just about language. It is also about the mind. Every time you try to speak English, your mind reacts. Sometimes it reacts with fear, sometimes with doubt, sometimes with stress or embarrassment. That reaction is not a weakness. It is a signal. And if you learn how to work with that signal instead of fighting it, English practice can become one of the strongest tools for building mental resilience. Mental resilience means the ability to stay steady when things feel uncomfortable. It means not collapsing emotionally when you make a mistake. It means continuing even when your confidence drops. And here is the important part. Every English learner already practices resilience without realizing it. Every time you try to speak, every time you listen even when you don't understand everything, every time you keep going instead of quitting, you are training your mind. Most people think English practice should feel easy before they continue. But resilience grows in the opposite way. It grows when things feel slightly uncomfortable and you stay anyway. Not overwhelmed, not panicked, just gently uncomfortable. That is the zone where growth happens. Many learners avoid speaking English because it affects their emotions. They say English makes them nervous, anxious, or tired. But the problem is not English. The problem is how they interpret those feelings. Nervousness does not mean you are failing. Nervousness means your mind is adapting. When you stop running from that feeling and start understanding it, English becomes a training ground for emotional strength. Think about this carefully. When you practice English, you practice patience. You practice staying calm while searching for words. You practice listening without full control. You practice expressing yourself imperfectly. All of these are core resilience skills. English is not just a language. It is a controlled challenge for your mind. The reason so many learners burn out is because they treat English practice like a test instead of training. Tests judge you. Training strengthens you. When you shift from a test mindset to a training mindset, everything changes. Mistakes stop being threats. They become part of the process. Difficulty stops being a warning. It becomes a signal that training is working. Slow English is especially powerful for mental resilience. When you slow down, you give your nervous system time to regulate. You are no longer chasing words. You are allowing them to come. That calm approach teaches your mind that pressure is not required for progress. Calm repetition builds both language and emotional stability. Many learners have an inner voice that becomes harsh during English practice. That voice criticizes pronunciation, grammar, speed, and accent. Over time, that inner criticism becomes louder than any external feedback. Practicing English for mental resilience means changing your relationship with that inner voice. Instead of arguing with it, you acknowledge it and continue anyway. That continuation is resilience. You may notice that when you practice English consistently, your tolerance for discomfort increases. Situations that once felt overwhelming start to feel manageable. You recover faster after mistakes. You stop overthinking small errors. This is not accidental. This is mental training happening through language. It is important to understand that resilience is not about being confident all the time. Resilient people still feel doubt. They still feel nervous. The difference is that those feelings no longer control their actions. English practice gives you daily opportunities to practice this skill in a safe environment. At this stage, you are not trying to sound fluent. You are training your mind to stay present. Presence is more important than perfection. When your mind stays present, your learning becomes deeper and more sustainable. You are no longer fighting yourself while learning. You might be surprised to realize that some of the strongest English ace speakers are not the ones who learned fastest. They are the ones who stayed longest. They stayed through confusion. They stayed through embarrassment. They stayed through plateaus. That staying is resilience. Right now, I want you to pause and reflect for a moment. You are listening to this in English. That means your mind is already capable of handling uncertainty. You do not understand every word perfectly, yet you continue. That is resilience in action. You are already practicing it. In this series, we are going to use English practice intentionally to strengthen your mental resilience. Not by pushing harder, but by practicing smarter. You will learn how to use slow listening, gentle speaking, and consistent exposure to train your mind to stay calm under pressure. Over time, this will change how you experience English and how you experience challenges in general. For now, say this sentence slowly, out loud, if you can. Practicing English makes my mind stronger. Say it again. Notice how it feels. This is not just motivation. It is a reframing of what you are already doing. You are not weak because English feels difficult. You are training something important every time it feels difficult, and you continue. That training does not disappear, it accumulates. In the next segment, we will talk about how slow listening and controlled repetition build emotional control and focus, and why this approach creates long-term resilience instead of burnout. We will continue calmly, step by step, using English not just as a language, but as a tool for mental strength. When you are ready, we will move forward together. In the first segment, you learned that practicing English is not just about language, but about training the mind to stay steady under pressure. Now, in this second segment, we focus on one of the most powerful tools for building mental resilience through English: slow listening and controlled repetition. These two practices quietly strengthen focus, patience, and emotional regulation in ways most learners never notice. Many English learners listen to English passively. They play a video or podcast while doing something else, and when they don't understand, frustration appears. That frustration is not caused by lack of ability. It is caused by lack of control. When the mind feels out of control, it reacts emotionally. Mental resilience begins when you take control back, gently and intentionally. Slow listening means choosing material that allows your mind to stay calm. It means listening at a pace where your brain can follow without panic. This does not mean understanding every word. It means understanding enough to stay present. Presence is the foundation of resilience. When your mind stays present, instead of escaping into frustration, you are training emotional stability. Controlled repetition is what turns listening into training. When you listen to the same content again, your brain relaxes. Uncertainty decreases. Confidence increases. Each repetition sends a message to your nervous system that unfamiliarity is temporary and manageable. That message is resilience training. Many learners avoid repetition because they believe it is boring or unnecessary. But repetition is not for the language alone. It is for the mind. Repetition teaches patience. It teaches tolerance for imperfection. It teaches you to stay instead of quit. These are the same skills required to handle stress in real life. Think about how your body reacts when you hear fast English. Breathing becomes shallow. Thoughts speed up. Anxiety appears. That reaction is automatic. Slow listening interrupts that reaction. It slows the nervous system. When the nervous system slows, learning becomes deeper and safer. Mental resilience grows when your brain learns that difficulty does not equal danger. Slow listening creates that lesson. Each time you listen slowly and continue despite partial understanding, your mind learns that uncertainty can be tolerated. Over time, tolerance becomes confidence. Controlled repetition also reduces self-criticism. The first time you listen, your inner voice may say, "I don't understand this." The second time, that voice becomes quieter. By the third time, familiarity replaces judgment. That change is not accidental. Repetition softens the inner critic and builds trust in yourself. Another important aspect of slow listening is focus training. In modern life, attention is constantly pulled in different directions. Slow English practice trains sustained attention. You listen, you stay, you do not jump away when it feels uncomfortable. That ability to stay focused under mild stress is a core resilience skill. You may notice that slow listening feels emotionally different from fast listening. Fast listening feels like chasing. Slow listening feels like grounding. Grounding is what keeps the mind stable. When the mind is stable, learning feels less exhausting and more rewarding. It is also important to remove pressure during repetition. You are not repeating to memorize. You are repeating to normalize. Normalization reduces emotional resistance. When something feels normal, it stops triggering fear. English becomes familiar territory instead of a battlefield. Many learners ask how many times they should repeat something. There is no perfect number. Repeat until your body feels calmer, not until your brain feels bored. Boredom often comes after calm. Calm is the goal. Calm is resilience. As you practice slow listening and repetition, you may notice that your reaction to mistakes changes. You stop reacting emotionally. You simply notice and continue. That reaction pattern transfers to speaking later. When you speak, you will feel less panic because your mind has learned how to stay steady. Right now, notice how you feel while listening to this. You may not understand every word perfectly, yet you continue. Your breathing is steady. Your mind is following. That is mental resilience happening in real time. Say this sentence slowly, out loud, if you can. Listening slowly helps my mind stay calm. Say it again. Let that idea settle. This is not just a learning strategy, it is emotional training. Over time, slow listening and repetition build trust between you and your mind. You stop forcing, you stop rushing, you start cooperating with yourself. That cooperation is what allows long term progress without burnout. In the next segment, we will move from listening to speaking and explore how gentle speaking practice builds emotional strength without triggering fear. You will learn how to speak in a way that supports mental resilience instead of draining it. We will continue calmly, step by step, using English as a tool for both language growth and inner stability. When you are ready, we will move forward together. In the previous segment, you learned how slow listening and repetition build calm focus and emotional control. Now, in this segment, we move into the area that most learners find the most challenging and the most powerful for mental resilience speaking. But not fast speaking, not perfect speaking, and not performance based speaking. We focus on gentle speaking practice that strengthens the mind instead of triggering fear. For many English learners, speaking feels emotionally heavier than listening. Listening allows distance. Speaking creates exposure. When you speak, your thoughts become public. Your accent becomes audible. Your pauses become visible. This exposure often activates fear, self judgment, and stress. That reaction is natural. It does not mean you are weak. It means your nervous system is protecting you. Mental resilience grows when you learn how to speak without overwhelming your nervous system. This means choosing speaking practices that feel slightly uncomfortable but still safe. Not silence and not panic. That middle zone is where resilience develops. Gentle speaking practice starts with permission. Permission to speak slowly. Permission to use simple sentences. Permission to pause. Permission to stop and continue. When you remove the demand to sound fluent, your mind relaxes. When the mind relaxes, speaking becomes possible. Many learners try to practice speaking by pushing themselves to talk fast or talk a lot. This often backfires. The nervous system becomes overloaded, mistakes feel heavier, and confidence drops. Gentle speaking does the opposite. It teaches your mind that speaking does not equal danger. Each calm speaking moment rewires that belief. One powerful way to practice gentle speaking is speaking to yourself, not silently, but out loud. When you speak out loud alone, your brain still experiences speaking, but without social pressure. This allows you to train your voice while keeping emotional safety. Over time, your body becomes more comfortable hearing itself speak English. Another important aspect of gentle speaking is pacing. When you speak slowly, your breathing deepens. Deep breathing sends a signal of safety to the brain. That signal reduces fear responses. You are not slowing down to sound careful. You are slowing down to regulate your nervous system. Mistakes will still happen, And that is where resilience training truly begins. When you make a mistake and continue calmly instead of stopping or criticizing yourself, you train emotional recovery. Recovery is more important than accuracy. Resilient minds recover quickly. Fragile minds collapse under small errors. Many learners develop a harsh inner voice during speaking practice. That voice comments on pronunciation, grammar, and accent in real time. Gentle speaking practice teaches you to notice that voice without obeying it. You do not argue with it. You continue speaking anyway. That continuation weakens the voice over time. You may notice that your speaking sessions feel emotionally tiring at first. This is not a sign of failure. It means your mind is doing new work. Emotional muscles are being trained, just like physical muscles. They feel tired before they become strong. Consistency matters more than duration. 5 minutes of gentle speaking every day builds more resilience than one long, stressful session once a week. The goal is not to exhaust yourself. The goal is to teach your nervous system that speaking English is survivable and manageable. It is also important to remove judgment from your speaking practice. You are not practicing to sound good. You are practicing to stay present. Presence is resilience. When you stay present during speaking, even when it feels imperfect, you are training emotional strength. You might notice that over time, your fear response becomes quieter. Speaking feels less dramatic. Your body reacts less intensely. This does not mean you no longer care. It means your mind has learned that speaking English is not a threat. Right now, say this sentence slowly, out loud, if you can. Speaking gently makes my mind stronger. Say it again. Notice your breathing. Notice your posture. That calm awareness is resilience in action. Another important realization at this stage is that silence during speaking is not failure. Silence is thinking. Silence is processing. When you allow silence without panic, you teach your mind patience. Patience is one of the strongest resilience skills you can build. As gentle speaking becomes familiar, you may start to feel more control over your emotions in other areas of life as well. You recover faster from stress. You react less strongly to mistakes. This is because resilience is transferable. Training it through English strengthens it everywhere. Remember, you are not training to be fearless. You are training to function calmly even when fear appears. Fear may still show up. That is okay. You do not need to eliminate it. You need to continue despite it. In the next segment, we will focus on how to use mistakes intentionally as resilience training instead of treating them as emotional setbacks. You will learn how to turn errors into stability instead of stress. Step by step, we will continue using English not just as a language, but as a structured way to strengthen your mind. When you are ready, we will move forward together. In the previous segment, you learned how gentle speaking builds emotional strength without overwhelming your nervous system. Now, in this segment, we focus on one of the most misunderstood parts of learning English and building mental resilience at the same time: mistakes. Most learners see mistakes as proof of weakness. In reality, mistakes are one of the strongest training tools for resilience. if you learn how to respond to them correctly. When you make a mistake in English, two things happen at the same time. One thing happens in the language, and another happens in your mind. The language part is simple. A word is wrong. A sentence is incomplete. A pronunciation is unclear. The mental part is heavier. Your inner voice reacts. It judges. It warns you. It tells you that you should have done better. That second reaction is what causes stress, not the mistake itself. Mental resilience grows when you change your reaction to mistakes. Resilient minds do not avoid mistakes. They recover from them calmly. Recovery is the skill we are training here. Every time you make a mistake and continue without emotional collapse, you strengthen your resilience. Many learners try to prevent mistakes by overthinking before they speak. This creates pressure and tension. Pressure makes speaking harder, not easier. Mistakes still happen, but now they feel bigger because you invested more emotional energy. A calmer approach is to allow mistakes and focus on continuation instead of prevention. When you treat mistakes as normal, your nervous system relaxes. Relaxation improves clarity. Clarity improves communication. This is why confident speakers often sound clear even when their grammar is not perfect. They are not emotionally disrupted by small errors. One powerful resilience practice is to intentionally allow small mistakes during practice. This may sound uncomfortable, but it is effective. When you allow yourself to speak without stopping every time something is imperfect, your mind learns that mistakes are survivable. Survivability is the foundation of resilience. Another important shift is separating meaning from form. Meaning is what you want to communicate. Form is how perfectly you say it. Most listeners care more about meaning than form. When you focus on meaning, mistakes lose their emotional power. When you obsess over form, mistakes feel personal. Your inner critic may become louder when you allow mistakes. That is normal. The inner critic reacts when control is reduced. Instead of arguing with that voice, acknowledge it and continue. Continuation weakens the critic. Silence strengthens it. It is also important to notice how long you stay emotionally affected by a mistake. Resilient people feel the discomfort briefly and then move on. Fragile patterns replay the mistake again and again in the mind. The goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to recover faster. You can practice this recovery skill deliberately. When you notice a mistake, take a slow breath and continue speaking. Do not apologize. Do not explain. Just continue. That simple action retrains your nervous system to stay present. Mistakes during English practice are controlled challenges. They happen in a relatively safe environment. This makes English an ideal place to train resilience. You face discomfort, you recover, and nothing bad happens. Over time, your mind learns that discomfort is not dangerous. You may notice that after practicing this for some time, your fear of speaking decreases. This is not because you make fewer mistakes. It is because mistakes no longer control your emotions. Emotional freedom is resilience. Right now, say this sentence slowly, out loud, if you can. Mistakes help my mind become stronger. Say it again. Notice how your body reacts. Allow the idea to settle. Another important realization at this stage is that mistakes are information, not judgment. They show you where learning is happening. If you never make mistakes, you are not challenging yourself enough. Growth and mistakes always travel together. As you continue practicing English this way, you may notice changes beyond language. You become more patient with yourself. You react less strongly to small failures. You recover faster in difficult situations. This is because resilience trained in one area transfers to others. You are no longer practicing English just to improve vocabulary or grammar. You are practicing emotional flexibility. That flexibility is what allows long-term success without burnout. In the next segment, we will focus on building daily English routines that strengthen mental resilience consistently without pressure or exhaustion. You will learn how small, regular practice creates stability over time. We will continue calmly, step by step, using English as a reliable training ground for your mind. When you are ready, we will move forward together. In the last segment, you learned how mistakes can be used as training instead of emotional setbacks. Now, in this segment, we focus on something that quietly determines whether mental resilience actually grows or slowly disappears over time. Your daily English practice routine. Not how long you study, not how hard you push, but how consistently and calmly you show up. Mental resilience does not grow from intensity. It grows from stability. Many English learners make the same mistake. They practice very hard for a short period of time, feel exhausted, lose confidence, and then stop. Stopping breaks trust with the mind. Each stop sends a message that discomfort leads to quitting. That message weakens resilience. What we are building instead is a routine that your mind can trust. A routine that says, I will practice, even when motivation is low, even when confidence drops, even when today feels ordinary. Ordinary practice is powerful. Ordinary practice builds emotional endurance. A resilient English routine is small, predictable, and non-threatening. It does not rely on motivation. It relies on commitment. Motivation comes and goes. Commitment stays. When your mind knows what to expect, it relaxes. Relaxation creates safety. Safety allows learning. One of the most important rules here is this: never practice English in a way that overwhelms you. Overwhelm trains avoidance, not resilience. Slight discomfort is enough. 5 to 15 minutes of focused, calm practice every day is far more effective than long, stressful sessions that leave you drained. Your routine should include listening, speaking, and reflection, but in gentle amounts. Listening trains patience. Speaking trains courage. Reflection trains awareness. Together, they create emotional balance. You are not trying to master everything in one session. You are training your nervous system to stay engaged over time. Another key element of a resilient routine is repetition without judgment. When you repeat similar activities each day, your mind stops treating English as a new threat. Familiarity reduces emotional resistance. Over time, English stops feeling heavy and starts feeling normal. Normal is the foundation of resilience. Many learners quit because they expect visible progress every day. But resilience grows invisibly. You may not notice big changes week to week. Instead, you notice that you recover faster from mistakes. You notice that you hesitate less. You notice that English no longer drains you as much. These are signs of real progress. It is also important to practice English even on low energy days. On those days, do less, but do not do nothing. Even one or two sentences spoken out loud keep the habit alive. Continuity is more important than performance. Continuity teaches your mind that English is part of life, not a special event that requires perfect conditions. Your environment matters as well. Practice in a space where you feel safe. Safety does not mean comfort forever. It means emotional permission. When your environment feels supportive, your mind opens. When it feels judgmental, your mind closes. Choose your practice space carefully. You may also notice resistance before practice. Your mind may try to delay or distract you. That resistance is normal. It is the mind protecting itself from discomfort. Do not fight it aggressively. Acknowledge it and begin anyway. Beginning is often harder than continuing. Once you start, resistance usually fades. Over time, a calm daily routine builds something very important: self-trust. You begin to trust yourself to show up. That trust reduces anxiety. Anxiety decreases when trust increases. This is how English practice strengthens mental resilience beyond language. Right now, say this sentence slowly, out loud, if you can. Small daily practice makes my mind stronger. Say it again. Let the idea settle. This is not about doing more. It is about doing enough, consistently. As your routine stabilizes, you may notice that English becomes less emotional. That does not mean you care less. It means your mind is no longer reacting as strongly. Stability replaces drama. That stability allows long-term growth. In the next segment, we will focus on how to use English practice to handle stress, pressure, and emotional challenges in real life situations. You will learn how the resilience you build here transfers outside of language learning. We will continue calmly, step by step, using English as a daily anchor for mental strength. When you are ready, we will move forward together. In the previous segment, you learned how a calm daily routine builds stability and self-trust over time. Now, in this segment, we take that stability and apply it to real life pressure. Because the true test of mental resilience is not how you feel when you are calm, but how you respond when stress appears. English practice can become a powerful tool for learning how to stay steady during those moments. Stress often shows up suddenly. A conversation starts unexpectedly. Someone speaks faster than you expected. You are asked a question before you feel ready. In these moments, the body reacts first. Breathing becomes shallow. Thoughts race. The urge to escape or stay silent appears. This reaction is not a failure. It is a nervous system response. Mental resilience grows when you learn how to stay present instead of shutting down. English practice gives you a controlled environment to train this skill. When you listen to English under mild pressure and continue, you teach your mind that stress does not require avoidance. When you speak, even while feeling nervous, you train emotional courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to act calmly while fear is present. One of the most important resilience skills you build through English is emotional regulation. Regulation means noticing stress without letting it control your behavior. When stress appears during English practice, instead of stopping or criticizing yourself, you slow down, you breathe, you continue. That sequence retrains your nervous system. Slow English is especially effective here. When pressure increases, slowing your speech sends a signal of safety to your brain. That signal lowers emotional intensity. You are not slowing down because you are weak. You are slowing down because you are skilled. Skilled speakers manage their pace intentionally. Another powerful resilience lesson is learning to tolerate incomplete understanding. In real life, you will not always understand everything. Resilient learners do not panic when this happens. They stay engaged. They listen for meaning. They accept uncertainty without emotional collapse. English practice teaches this skill repeatedly. You may notice that stress feels different when you stop fighting it. When you stop telling yourself that stress is bad, it becomes manageable. Stress becomes information instead of danger. This shift is essential for mental resilience. English practice also teaches you how to recover after stressful moments. Maybe you freeze briefly. Maybe you miss a word. Maybe your sentence feels awkward. Recovery is what matters. When you continue instead of quitting mentally, you strengthen resilience. Each recovery builds confidence. It is important to understand that resilience does not mean pushing yourself into extreme stress. We are not training panic. We are training tolerance. Mild to moderate pressure is enough. Overexposure can be harmful. Gentle exposure builds strength safely. You can intentionally practice this by slightly increasing difficulty when you feel ready, listening to slightly faster English, speaking for one more sentence than feels comfortable, staying present for a few seconds longer before stopping. These small challenges expand your capacity. Over time, you may notice that situations that once felt overwhelming now feel manageable. Your body reacts less strongly. Your mind recovers faster. This is not because English became easy. It is because your resilience increased. Right now, say this sentence slowly out loud if you can. I can stay calm even when English feels stressful. Say it again. Notice your breathing. Notice your posture. Calm awareness is resilience in action. Another important realization at this stage is that emotional strength is transferable. The calm you build while practicing English appears in other areas of life. You handle conversations better. You manage stress more effectively. You react less impulsively. This is the hidden benefit of resilience-based English practice. As you continue, remember that stress is not a signal to stop. It is a signal to slow down and stay present. Each time you do that, you strengthen your mind. In the final segment, we will bring everything together and focus on making mental resilience a permanent part of your English journey. You will learn how to maintain this strength over time and what to do when old patterns try to return. We will complete the series calmly and confidently. When you are ready, we will move into the final part together. You have now reached the final segment of this series, and it is important to pause and recognize what you have been training all along. You were not just learning English, you were training how your mind responds to challenge, uncertainty, and pressure. English became the tool, but mental resilience was always the deeper goal. At the beginning, English may have felt like something that tested you, something that exposed your weaknesses, something that made your emotions feel unstable. Now, English can become something different. It can become a place where you practice steadiness, a place where you practice patience, a place where you practice staying present even when things are not perfect. Mental resilience is not about becoming emotionally hard or detached. It is about becoming flexible. Flexible minds bend without breaking. They feel discomfort without collapsing. They recover without self-blame. Through slow listening, gentle speaking, daily routines, and calm recovery from mistakes, you have been training that flexibility step by step. One of the most important realizations at this stage is that difficulty is no longer something to avoid. Difficulty is information. It tells you where growth is happening. When English feels challenging, it does not mean you are failing. It means your mind is being stretched in a healthy way. Healthy stretching builds strength. As you continue your English journey after this series, remember that confidence will rise and fall. Some days you will feel strong. Other days you may feel tired or uncertain. That does not erase your progress. Resilience is not measured by constant confidence. It is measured by your ability to continue without giving up on yourself. Slow English remains your anchor. Whenever pressure appears, slow down. Slowing down is not weakness. It is regulation. Regulation allows your nervous system to stay balanced. Balanced systems learn better and recover faster. This skill will serve you far beyond English. Another key lesson from this series is that consistency matters more than intensity. You do not need dramatic effort. You need steady presence. Showing up calmly, even for a short time, builds trust with your mind. Trust reduces anxiety. Reduced anxiety creates space for growth. You may notice that your relationship with mistakes has changed. Mistakes may still happen, but they no longer define you emotionally. You notice them, you adjust, you continue. That ability to recover is one of the strongest signs of mental resilience. It is also important to remember that English is not separate from your life. The resilience you train here transfers outward. You may notice that you handle conversations more calmly. You respond to stress with more awareness. You judge yourself less harshly. This is because resilience is a general skill, not a language skill. When challenges appear in the future, whether in English or elsewhere, remember what you practiced here. Stay present. Breathe. Continue gently. You do not need to rush. You do not need to prove anything. You only need to stay. Right now, say this sentence slowly, out loud if you can. Practicing English has made my mind stronger. Say it again. Let it feel true. Because it is. You are not behind. You are not weak. You are training something valuable every time you continue instead of quitting. That training accumulates quietly. One day, You will look back and realize that what once felt overwhelming now feels manageable. This series does not end your journey, it changes how you walk it. You move forward with more patience, more awareness, and more trust in yourself. That trust is the foundation of long term success. English will continue to challenge you. That is normal. But now, challenge no longer means danger, it means opportunity. Opportunity to practice resilience, opportunity to grow. Take this mindset with you. Use English not just to communicate, but to strengthen your inner stability. Speak slowly. Listen calmly. Continue gently. You are ready to move forward not because everything is easy, but because you know how to stay steady when it is not.